Let us begin, not where all proper biographies do, with birth or baptism or bankruptcy, but instead in the dusty side lot of an office complex in Karachi, where Farhad Mansoor once spent 4 hours trying to convince a wild pigeon not to poop on his BMW. This, in a way, tells you almost everything you need to know about the man. He was a talker, a negotiator, a persuader of unreasonable creatures, be they birds, bureaucrats, or billionaires. And he always kept a spare suit jacket in the trunk, just in case the pigeon won. Farhad Mansoor was born in 1962, in the warm bosom of a modest but ambitious family in Hyderabad, Pakistan. His father, a school principal with a well-trained mustache, taught ethics and economics to teenage boys who could barely sit still. His mother, a fierce chess champion and an amateur poet, once rhymed inflation with damnation and had no regrets. From a young age, Farhad displayed a peculiar kind of business acumen. At age 6, he set up his first investment firm in the backyard, a blanket laid over 2 buckets, where he charged his cousins 5 paisa each to hear stories about magic coins that could multiply overnight. They never did, but he always returned their money, with interest, in marbles. He carried a plastic briefcase to school, filled with rubber bands, coins, and tiny contracts written in blue crayon. One of his classmates remembers that Farhad once tried to barter a chewed pencil for the rights to a lunchbox. He was, by all accounts, both confusing and charming. He went on to study business administration at a university where he was routinely mistaken for a professor due to his relentless habit of correcting the chalkboard. Farhad's first job was at a textile firm. He was fired within a month, not for incompetence, but for an overzealous attempt to optimize their thread inventory, using a system he invented involving dominoes and a pigeon, a recurring character in this story. The pigeon failed to return. The dominoes did not help. This early failure only deepened his resolve. As Farhad liked to say, "If you're going to fail, do it boldly. No one remembers a quiet disaster." By the late 1980s, Farhad was making a name for himself, or rather, several names. In different boardrooms across South Asia, he was known variously as the Fixer, the Gentleman Broker, and once in Bangladesh, that man with the slightly nervous eyebrows. He built a modest trading business that dealt in agricultural equipment, soft textiles, and, on one particularly memorable occasion, a misrouted shipment of mechanical goats, used for tourism in Norway apparently. He turned a profit on even those. Farhad's secret was always personal connection. He drank 15 cups of tea a day, met everyone twice, and remembered the name of every child, spouse, or secretary, whoever opened a door for him. There's a famous story, perhaps apocryphal, of a contract negotiation in 1994, where Farhad, frustrated by the legal language, tore up the 10-page agreement, drew a goat on a napkin, wrote "We agree," and got it signed. The deal held for 6 years. The goat drawing now hangs in a partner's office in Jakarta. Despite his growing empire, Farhad never became what you'd call a tycoon. He owned no yachts, wore no gold chains, and bought his shoes from the same man for 30 years. He trusted the man's eyebrows, said they told the truth. Instead, Farhad built his businesses like families, with loyalty, humor, and the occasional shouting match that ended in laughter. He launched Mansoor Holdings in 1997, a group of modest but effective companies that operated in trade, logistics, and small-scale manufacturing. He never took them public. He never wanted to. As he once explained in an investor meeting, "Public companies have shareholders. I have aunties. My aunties yell louder." In 2003, during a visit to London, a briefcase containing key export documents went missing. It was later found on a park bench, being used by a squirrel as a sunshade. Farhad didn't panic. He simply invited the customs officer to lunch, offered him a story, and somehow got the clearance in 48 hours. The story involved a misunderstanding between the squirrel and the British Post. Some say he was the last true gentleman in global trade. Others say he simply had excellent handwriting. As he aged, Farhad spoke less in meetings and listened more. He trained dozens of young entrepreneurs, most of whom remember him not for his advice, but for his analogies. One mentee recalls, "He once explained cash flow using a water hose, a spoon, and an actual fish. I'm still not sure what he meant, but I never forgot it." He became a reluctant icon of ethical business, a phrase he found too pompous for his taste. "Just don't be a donkey," he'd say, tapping his temple. "And remember, money moves faster when it's not afraid of you." Farhad never stopped negotiating, not with banks, not with suppliers, not even with nature. One evening in 2015, a pigeon landed on his office window and refused to move. For 3 hours, Farhad stood there, explaining to the bird the benefits of relocating to a nearby rooftop with better visibility, fewer predators, and complimentary breadcrumbs. Eventually, the pigeon left. He claimed it was the best negotiation of his life. Farhad Mansoor passed away quietly in 2021, surrounded by family and friends who each brought their own brand of storytelling to his bedside. His final request was that everyone drink one last cup of tea together. No speeches, no fuss. He left behind no grand monuments, no towering corporations. What he left behind was better. 1,000 small businesses running just a little more honestly. 100 young men and women who now told better stories in the boardroom. And a single napkin drawing of a goat, which still inspires laughter and trust wherever it travels. You don't just remember him. You tell him. You tell the stories of his pigeon standoffs. You draw the goat. You quote the metaphors. You drink the tea. You take the meeting. And when you find yourself trying to explain profit margins to someone who still thinks ROI means really old ideas, you smile and you say, "Let me tell you about Farhad Mansoor."